Let's bring in Florida Republican Congressman Byron Donalds for more on this. Congressman, good to see you. Your colleague from Illinois, Congresswoman Mary Miller, tweeted earlier today, quote, Joe Biden has had to evacuate 4 embassies in less than 3 years. The media said Biden and Blinken were experts and the adults are back in charge. The world has been on fire since their disaster in Afghanistan. Pray for our country and the 16,000 Americans Biden left in Sudan. Echoes of Afghanistan here. The embassy in Khartoum is closed, and there's still thousands of people who might want to get out.
First of all, my colleague Marionette Miller Meeks, she's absolutely correct. She called it right down the middle, like we've seen. 4 embassies, not even in 3 years of a presidency. And it seems that every single time the story is the same, some stupid form letter goes out from the State Department telling Americans abroad, hey, just like hunker down, shelter in place. Meanwhile, we're evacuating State Department personnel as opposed to having our military secure our embassy so Americans can find safe haven to be able to get out of these hot spots. You know, last time I checked, we don't leave people behind. But Joe Biden has now become an expert of doing this with Anthony Blinken being in charge of the State Department.
Yeah, Keith Kellogg was here, the general, talking about the same thing, that during the Trump administration, they vowed that they would never let a U.S. embassy fall or at least be evacuated. And yet this administration has done the same thing 4 times. It led you, because of what happened in Afghanistan, to introduce last week the big Biden Blunder Act, where you're seeking accountability for what happened in Afghanistan. But even before there's any accountability for Afghanistan, and we should point out, no one has been fired for that. Here we go again, Congressman.
You're absolutely right. Nobody's been fired from it. Listen, we just had an oversight hearing a couple days ago where the Inspector General of Afghanistan has said in open testimony that the Biden administration, the State Department, and USAID are not cooperating with the Inspector General from Afghanistan in violation of federal law. So this administration is breaking the law. They're doing it brazenly. They're ignoring their responsibilities to actually do business and provide information to the Inspector General. Meanwhile, we left $85 billion behind in Afghanistan. That weak and terrible withdrawal, in our view, actually led to the Ukraine invasion because Vladimir Putin could clearly see that there was nobody at home at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And if American leadership is not going to be firm, it tells our adversaries around the globe that now is the time to push hard, grab territory, be aggressive. The American people cannot tolerate much more of this because a more aggressive world for China and Russia means America is put into a secondary position. And unfortunately, world history is consistent on this. When America does not lead, it actually leads to the death of more American soldiers across the world, because at some point, we're going to have to stand firm.
Another big issue that's on your plate, I know, Congressman, is what to do about the debt ceiling and where negotiations are going to go when they eventually begin negotiations, because they haven't yet. Last week, Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker, introduced the Limit, Save, Grow Act, which would, among other things, allow for a $1.5 trillion increase in the federal debt limit, but at the same time would claw back unspent COVID-19 funds, end student debt relief, impose a 1% cap on future spending, repeal green tax incentives, and produce more incentives for oil and gas. Biden responded to that verbally, calling it wacko and irresponsible, but there's been no official response yet from the White House. I mean, nobody's actually talking about this. Do they need to?
They absolutely need to. The only wacko response is the fact that Joe Biden refuses to negotiate. And let me be very clear with the American people. Folks, Joe Biden wants a conflict on the debt ceiling. He could have increased the debt ceiling when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House 6 months ago. They passed an omnibus bill basically on Christmas Eve, spending all kind of money. They could have done it then. He chose not to, on purpose, because he wants this fight. What House Republicans are doing is saying, look, COVID is over. Even Joe Biden has now acknowledged that. Let's get back to pre-COVID spending levels. Makes perfect sense. Let's have a common sense approach to how government's going to spend money going forward. Let's actually bring back domestic energy production. Those things will do a couple of things. Number one, domestic energy production helps to lower inflation. Number two, controlling government spending controls inflation. Number three, actually putting holds on the bureaucracy and expanding our production here at home expands our economy. This is all common sense stuff. It helps every American. But Joe Biden doesn't want to negotiate. What he wants is to spend $7 trillion next year while only receiving about $4.5 trillion in taxes. He wants to have brinksmanship, and so that's ridiculous. We're not going along with that. So I anticipate we're going to pass the bill that the Speaker is putting forward. I anticipate we're going to pass that this week, and then look at Senate Democrats and say, do you just want to sit around and do nothing? Because that is irresponsible.
Yeah, the president's demanding another clean debt ceiling increase. Doesn't look at the moment like he's going to get it. Congressman Byron Donalds of the great state of Florida, great to catch up with you. Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you.